What's up, everybody? Kyle here at Let's Talk Wax, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at the top 25 prospects in 2024 Bowman Chrome. This is set to release on September 11th. We did not get this video out in time for the pre-order window. I think the pre-order occurred on the Topps website last week, and boxes were going for about $279. Now, if you guys want to get my full opinion and piece on this release as a whole, I did do a live stream earlier in the week. You guys can go check that out on the channel. Now, before we jump into our top 25, I want to go over some things that are going to be very important before you watch this video. First, you're going to see two different ranking systems, the Let's Talk Wax rank and a Juggernaut rank, which is going to be JUG on the data cards. My Let's Talk Wax ranking system, if you guys watch my content, hasn't changed in over about 2 years. Elite is the top rank you can get, and 7 is the lowest rank you can get. And these ranks are based on a player ceiling. They are specifically my opinion, just by breaking down their stats, maybe some projection. I try not to put a whole lot of projection into my rankings. It's purely what I read from the base stat line. Age level has a lot to do with it, and defensive value. So, like I said, the Juggernaut's different from the Let's Talk Wax ranking system. This is just my personal opinion, kind of looking at all the data from prospects as a whole. Now, my Juggernaut ranking system I created about 1.5 years ago, and it is purely stats based. Now, I did cherry pick the stats that I like for the Juggernaut ranking system, but it's pumped out some pretty good prospects over the last 1.5 years that are pretty linear with performance over their career. I do include weighted on base average, which is one of my favorite stats to look at, kind of more than batting average at this point in my hobby journey, I guess you could say, in my content creation journey. Stolen bases per plate appearance, K percentage, swing strike percentage, WRC plus, and age level. I give each of those a specific weight, and you guys can get all of my current 2024 Juggernaut rankings over at my Patreon page. I do a video about every 2 to 3 weeks on updating those ranks, but my formula is over there, and also my updated ranks for 2024. So if you want to check that out, go ahead, and I'm also going to apply a Juggernaut ranking to most of the players on this top 25 list. And most importantly, I want you all to know that I am doing a top 25 list just based on the best prospects that I think you can pull out of this release. These are not the top 25 prospects I'm going to buy on day one. I am probably not going to buy any of these guys for at least 1 year or 2 if I choose to buy them at all. The track record for Chrome releases is not very good, and I did include this data. I did it last year. I updated it for the current time right now. If you look at some of the prices on release from 2023 Chrome, you're going to see how far they have fallen in just 1 year. You see no player in green right now from release day prices. Samuel Basayo is probably the top prospect in this release. He played the entire season in AA at 19. He has probably the highest offensive upside of any prospect from the 2023 Chrome release that hasn't graduated to the major leagues. And his cards were $220 on release, and his cards today are sitting at $80. And this is a kid who's performed better than anyone on this list, and you can see what happens if you choose to buy cards right at release. So what I do these videos for is to kind of keep you guys informed of who are guys to look for if you're in breaks. A lot of people come to the channel. They go to MLB.com and they look at the top international prospects, and they see somebody at the top of the list. Ethan Salas last year was at the top of that list, of course, and his cards were $500 on release day. Well, Ethan Salas struggled tremendously in 2024. His defense is airtight, but his offensive profile is still kind of up in the air. And the reason I create all of my videos is to keep you guys informed and try to keep you from spending $500 on an Ethan Salas card on release week that's going to depreciate about 400%, because today they sell for about $100. So if you're buying Ethan Salas on release, these are base chromes. If you were buying Ethan Salas on release last year, you swallowed about $400 already. So I really want to make sure you guys are aware of that. I'm not telling you go buy the top 5. My top 5 are just the top 5 prospects that you're going to find in this checklist. And some of these guys that are in the top 5 They aren't even guys that I would probably put on a top 100 list. So these are for guys who are ripping. These are for people who are in breaks. And if you guys pull one of these cards, it may be a great idea to sell and maximize your profit. As you can see, they're going to go nowhere but down. And if you choose to maybe pick up a prospect later, you can buy back in at a much cheaper price. I never buy on release day. It's just one of my golden rules. So without further ado, and after I got that out there, we're going to jump into my top 25. And like I said, if you guys pull some big names, I would definitely try to move these cards as quickly as possible. And I would wait maybe 9 to 12 months, you know, a year and a half down the road. You're going to be able to buy back in much cheaper because if Samuel Basallo prices haven't gone up from release, I don't see a whole lot of players whose cards are going to go up post-release week. So leading us off is Jose Perdomo, who is the number 3 ranked prospect on MLB.com's 2024 international list. So he'll help drive the hype train for sure on this release. We weren't given much of a stat line to work with, but DSL stats are pretty much a crapshoot anyway. Definitely something I want to cover. There's so much to cover. If you guys watch the channel, most of you are already aware of how I feel about certain things. You're pretty used to the spiel I give on 2020 on Chrome releases, but please, please, please understand that DSL, the Dominican Summer League, is pretty much like 4A or 5A high school baseball. These are stats that are probably recorded by players. I know when I played in the Complex League, players recorded charts. Like, we did the charts. It wasn't a coach. It wasn't a statistician that they hired to sit in a box and record stats. We, as the players, recorded stats. We recorded pitch velocities. And just be aware that DSL stats are extremely, extremely open to change when a prospect comes stateside. They can change drastically. I've seen players absolutely dominate the Dominican Summer League, come stateside, and just fall flat on their face. 2021 Bowman Chrome, if you go back and look at that release and you pull up some of the top performing DSL players in 2021 Bowman Chrome and you look at where they're at now, that will help you give you a little better understanding of why I don't put a lot of stock in DSL stats. But anyway, I'm sure he's going to be one of the top chases because he's one of the top 3 players on MLB.com's international class. That's a mainstream site. People are going to go over there and be like, hey, you know, Jose Perdomo's number 3 in the class. He's definitely going to be a future superstar. But it's not really how that works. Like I said, if you guys want to get some more info on that, check out my live stream I did. But we're probably going to have to wait to give him an honest ranking. I gave him a 3 just because he's only got 22 plate appearances. Small sample size. DSL, I mean, there's just nothing really to go off of besides what scouts say he may project into, and that's very faulty at times as well. So he'll probably fall towards some of the bottom of my, like I said, in my write-up I have, he's going to be at the bottom, and this is where I put him. He's at number 20 on this list, but I didn't want to have to respond to 1,000 comments saying, you know, where's Jose Perdomo because he's number 3 on the international list, even though he's got 22 plate appearances. Paulino Santana, aside from some minimal power, there are really good underlying K numbers here and underlying numbers in general. I like the K numbers. His swing strike is quite low for the DSL. 18.5 is not really a good swing strike percentage, but as I was doing my breakdown, and you guys can get the full breakdown over my Patreon page when I was doing my breakdown, and over the last year or two I've noticed in the DSL, swing strikes percentages are quite high. Most of these kids are 16, 17 years old. A lot of the pitchers are wild and erratic. There's just a swing and miss, swing and strike percentage is generally high in the DSL. And a lot of the top prospects that I did notice in this release, the guys that I actually like, their swing and strike percentages for the most part came down significantly once they came to the Complex League in low A. So do be aware that the swing and strike percentages are pretty high for most prospects in the DSL. But he did walk more than he struck out, and that's something that's always a positive when you're looking at these guys. He looks to have a way above average speed and a large 6'2" frame that could definitely support quality growth. He will be a guy to keep an eye on in 2025, but his stats aren't much of a wow factor, you know, as far as the DSL goes. Next, we've got Elias Medina, and I couldn't find any info on why he only had 61 plate appearances this year, but I'm assuming it was an injury. I looked it up, couldn't find anything. He showed off a hit, power, speed triple threat in the DSL last year, but I was perplexed as to why he repeated the level in 2024. We don't see a lot of guys that do well in the DSL repeat that level. He was also 17.8 and age appropriate for the complex league this year, but they chose to keep him in the DSL, which kind of seems like a red flag to me, but he did perform. You know, he hit for some contact over both levels. Over a small sample size, he produced similar numbers outside of the power department. He didn't hit any home runs in 2024 opposed to his 7 that he hit in 2023. But like I said, a small sample size, only 61 plate appearances. He's got a high swinging strike percentage over a 2-year span, but it hasn't really impacted his contact rates yet. Definitely something, the yet is the most important word in this breakdown. We should see him in the complex league in 2025. I don't understand why he would repeat the DSL for a 3rd year, but he's going to be a bit old for that level. He'll be coming in right around an early 19, a mid 19-year-old in the complex league, so a little old for the level. Next, we've got Juan Baez, who makes a lot of contact justified by high batting average, where he has large sample sizes and excellent contact percentages, over 90% in 2024. If you look at his FanGraph stat line, and like I said, on my breakdowns on Patreon, I do their stat lines by level, so you can see, you know, how they perform at each level. It's not just like a baseline number, you know, for A ball and high A. If you go to like certain websites like Baseball Reference, you're not going to see the real split between 2 levels. You're only going to see what they've done over the course of a full season between 2 levels. But if you look at Baez's larger sample sizes, he's performed very well over those sample sizes. And we've got data all the way to low A, which is excellent. And low A is usually a breaking point for a lot of these international guys. Sometimes that can be the end of the road for a lot of DSL, a lot of young international players that perform well at DSL. Now, while he only has 1 home run on the season, he's been good for 21 extra base hits, which is pretty good for a player his age. If you just solely look at home runs with these younger players, you kind of take yourself out of the power projection. You know, is a 17-year-old hitting a lot of doubles? If a 17-year-old's hitting a lot of doubles, that could translate into a little more power down the road. It doesn't always. It could mean they have exceptional speed, and you know, they can hit a ball just kind of looper in the gap and they can leg it out into a double. But he's got a lot of extra base hits. But projecting impact power right now is a stretch. He could run into more home runs as he develops physically, but I don't see impact power right now. The physical projection also isn't great. He's standing below 6 feet. The hit tool is a go, but his ceiling will be determined by how much power he gets to, because there isn't any impact speed. It looks just like a contact bat right now, so he's going to have to run into some power to kind of make some waves in the hobby, I think. Now, our next guy was very interesting to me. He's going to be a guy that I watch. His name is Josh, and I'm going to butcher this probably, so if you guys do have a pronunciation, if you get to see these players in person and you get to hear their names announced. I couldn't find any video. Usually the guys that interested me and pique my interest on these checklists, I do try to go and watch some video, but it's really hard to, I can't watch DSL video. It's just, it's something, it's a complete grain of salt with the DSL. But I tried to find some quality video of Josh, I'm going to say Adam Zuski, and I could not, but I do like his numbers. He was drafted in the 15th round of the 2023 draft out of high school, and he only had 8 appearances in 2023, so he didn't really get going into his pro career until this year, and he's doing pretty well. He was recently promoted to low A following the end of the complex league and holds exceptional numbers for a 15th round high school draftee. So this could be one of the more sleeper type players on this checklist. Now, he is kind of a long shot sleeper, but like I said, if you go to MLB.com and you're like, oh, he's a 15th rounder, there's no way he's going to pan out. You know, that's how we kind of develop these sleeper guys, because they don't get a lot of mainstream hype. He hit for some power and average, and the majority of his power came in the form of doubles. He's hit 15 in under 200 plate appearances. So another kid that, you know, has a pretty high ISO based on the number of extra base hits he has, not necessarily the home runs. But for a young 19-year-old, that's definitely what we look for to give us some hope into future power, are those extra base hits. So don't make sure you guys are looking into that and not just the home run column with these younger guys. I couldn't find any video, like I said, so I don't have a good idea of the type of contact he makes, whether it's just like spray contact, whether it's hard contact, whether it's gap-to-gap contact. You know, you watch different players take swings on videos, and you can see what their bat is going to be capable of, you know, down the road. You watch a guy like Luke Adams swing, it's completely different than a guy like Jacob Wilson. They are completely different hitters, and you can see, you know, the difference in contact that they make. But hopefully I'll get some clips late this season, maybe in low A or early next year. Second base defensive ceiling is kind of hurts him a little bit because he's going to have to hit a little bit more than he would if he played shortstop or third base. And that's where he gets the majority of his reps right now. And like I said, he could be one of the sleepers in this release because he was a 15th rounder, and he's probably not going to get a lot of notoriety from non-main or from anybody really besides people who kind of try to like to find sleepers like me. So he's not a lock, but definitely a guy to keep an eye on. Now, if you guys enjoyed this content and you want to help support the channel, I do have a Patreon page. You can find it in the video description. There's a link in there. It's got my complete breakdown of all 117 prospects on this checklist. I've got career stats for each level, a brief write-up. They all get a Let's Talk Wax rank. I do this for every release since 2019. I try to keep them pretty up to date throughout the year. I update them about 2 or 3 times per year. So lots of data for you guys to sort through over there to kind of help you stay organized. And like I said, I'm not trying to make picks for you guys, but I'm trying to provide as much data as I can for you to make your own decisions in the hobby. Become an independent collector and don't trust the words of one man. I've got team break guides for every release since 2020 that says what prospects are in each team, whether they have a first chrome auto, or both, and even the guys that are on the rookie card checklist. So if you're avid breakers, there is a very good organizational tool for you guys over there as well. My Juggernaut prospect rankings that I update about every 2 weeks are over there for you to view. It ranks every prospect that has over 180 or 190 plate appearances in the 2024 season. I also have my finalized 2023 rankings over there. I updated my top 100 Bowman Chrome autos list about a month and a half ago, so if you're looking for some budget buys, there are a bunch of choices on that list for you to make your own decisions on. I've got a top 100 Bowman Chrome autos list that I update at the end of every minor league season to kind of prepare for going into the new season. And as I said before, my buddy Bobby does a great job moderating our Discord server. It is a private server. We have prospecting updates pretty much daily when the season is going on. He does a great job of putting stuff with promotions in there. We've got a buy-sell trade that's it's a little bit active, but it's not like it's not an eBay for sure. We've got some help with grading over there and just lots of cool stuff. It's a very fun group of guys, and if you pay for it, you hopefully not going to have any scammers in our Discord. So we haven't come across that yet, but it's a fun community. We got about 400 to 425 active members over there. Next up, we've got Curly Martha, could be pronounced Marta. Not sure on that one. Like I said, these DSL guys, it's hard enough to find a picture, let alone find the way to pronounce some of their names. He's the number 29 international prospect in 2024 on MLB.com. He's a solid showing so far in the DSL. He split time defensively between shortstop and third base, but the majority of his reps were at shortstop. I really like, as far as like defensive projection goes, in the lower minors, if players are splitting a lot of time between different infield positions, I feel more like organizations are trying to see where they fit best. And other players, they're a lock at shortstop. Like, that's where they play. Marcelo Mayer, like, that's where he plays. He plays shortstop. If you look at his defensive splits throughout his career, you're going to see where the true shortstops lay. as far as the innings goes. We could see, we could be looking at a hit speed profile here. He had 4 home runs and 10 doubles, so there's a chance he runs into a bit more power down the road. He's currently under 6 feet tall though, so the physical projection is not plus. Another interesting guy here, we got Andres Valor. Another pronunciation possibility that could be wrong. And like I said, as I get to watch some video on these guys and see them actually in minor league action, it's hard to get good video in the DSL and Complex League. I like this guy. He's kind of like another one of those players that could be somewhat of a sleeper. I like burners, like guys that can run really fast, impact base stealers, but I like them even more when they have low ground ball to fly ball rates, because it opens up a door for more power as these type of kids mature physically. You see a lot of high batting average, high speed, high ground ball, fly ball rate hitters, and in the DSL, defense is not great. In the Complex League, defense is not great. These are young kids trying to learn positions. They're hitting balls to the right, balls to the left. They're legging out infield singles. You've got 16-year-old kids charting, probably giving dudes hits for errors. So you never really know. Why that average is so high. When the ground ball to fly ball rate is very low and they're hitting for some average, that kind of excites me. He hit 26 doubles and 7 triples over the last 2 seasons, and he's got a projectable 6'3" frame. He improved his swinging strike percentage significantly from the DSL to the Complex League, but he still kind of has fringy K percentages in the lower minors, which is a little worrisome for me. I do like sub 20 K percentages. Those are guys that I definitely really spike my interest, but 24 and 25% K rates aren't too bad across those 2 levels. I think power, again, is going to determine this kid's ceiling as long as he doesn't lose his ability to make contact as he moves up in the minors. But like I said, definitely another person that could be a sleeper on this list because his underlying data is pretty good and he is a burner that puts the ball in the air. Oswald Lugo is number 37 on MLB.com's 2024 international list. He's a pretty big teenager at 6'3", and he racked up 17 extra base hits this season. He could mature into some more power, but he's got low walk rates for the DSL and fringy K percentages. I can usually swallow higher K percentages if the walk rate is also high, but when there's some swing and miss and a player doesn't take walks, that gets a little worrisome for me. He's also got a 35% swinging strike rate that's got me a bit concerned about his future power development as he moves up into the minors. Better pitching usually translates into more swing and miss, so definitely something to keep your eye on. Don't get wrapped up in batting average, weighted on base average, and home runs if you see red flag K numbers. These are not red flag K numbers. If you get over to Patreon on my breakdown, you're going to see some 5.5s and some 6 rankies who do have those red flag K numbers, and they are ranked accordingly. He's probably likely to outgrow shortstop, so his power development is going to be very, very important if he moves to third base or a corner outfield position. Next, we've got Romeo Sanabria. It was an 18th round pick in the 2022 draft, so another guy that could fly way under the radar in this release. He's a big dude standing at 6'3" with a first base defensive ceiling. His body has come a long way since he was in the Complex League back in 2023. I was able to see some photos and some video of this guy when he was first drafted, and compared to where he is now in AA, there have been some major improvements to the body. So that's a good sign. It's a good sign of the work ethic because he's definitely worked hard to get his body in better shape. He's consistently shown off a solid hit power tool across 2 minor league seasons and worked his way up to AA this year. His power numbers have dipped a bit since entering high A and AA. That is sometimes normal. They could pick back up as he adjusts to the level. We do often see a big change in a lot of players when they get to the high A and AA level. The DSL to the Complex League is an adjustment. The Complex League to low A is an adjustment. A to high A is a pretty big adjustment, and high A to AA is absolutely massive. It far outweighs any jump in minor league baseball, that jump from high A to AA. Pitchers are freaking good in AA. They majority of them sit in the mid-90s. The majority of them have really good sliders. They have more than one out pitch. These are guys in AA that know how to get hitters out, and it's a huge adjustment. So one of the things I do like to do in prospecting is if I have a prospect that I like and they get called up to AA and they struggle, that sometimes is very normal. People freak out. They say, oh, this guy's trash. He's never going to make it because he's struggling in AA. One player that I can speak of for sure is Anthony Volpe. I think another one would be Nick York, guys who got to AA, had some struggles, and now Volpe, I think, is a 3+ WAR player for the New York Yankees. So there is an adjustment phase there in AA, but definitely something to be aware of. Being bat first, though, he'll have to hit, but he's been consistent and has some excellent swinging strike data. Like I said, he's a first baseman, so keep that in mind. First baseman need to stroke. And rounding up this group is Yasel Soler, and he is a very high contact ceiling and grew into a bit more power between 2023 and the 2024 season. His walk rates are most likely very low due to his bat to ball skills. Another thing that I see quite a bit, and I love Fangraphs. I love the work that they do over at Fangraphs. I think that website was kind of what inspired me to really dive deeper into prospects a few years ago, and it's just become a passion of mine, just to try to get as much info on these kids as I can. And one of the things that Longenhagen talked about in some of his write-ups are these young players that have very low walk percentages because they just make so much contact. When the pitcher throws them a ball in the strike zone, they don't swing and miss. They hit the ball, and that high contact ability leads to very low walk rates. So when I see players with excellent contact rates, I sometimes am able to give them passes on their walk rates. If you look at Jacob Wilson's walk rate throughout his career, it's extremely low, but he's also one of the best bat-to-ball hitters in the minor leagues. So he could be a player to watch in low A next year. I'm sure he'll be in low A. Had a good season in the complex league. I definitely keep eyes on his power numbers and where he trends defensively. Those are going to be two things to watch. If he's capable of sticking at third base and if he can continue to grow into more power. All right, leading off the 2.5 group, and number 10, we've got Gerald Perez. Now, he is going to be a Dodger on this checklist, even though he was traded to the Chicago Cubs prior to the deadline. I am going to put my team break guide out, and that will be my next video for you guys. And you're going to see that the Texas Rangers and the Los Angeles Dodgers are absolutely loaded teams in this release. So if you are jumping in to pick your team's breaks, the Dodgers and the Texas Rangers are probably going to be the two highest priced teams. I would say that with a lot of confidence after going through this checklist. Perez is a stocky 6 foot 0 inches tall without much physical projection, but he's got some thump and excellent swinging strike percentages, which piques my interest. I like guys that have some thump and make contact. He was traded to the White Sox, like I said, prior to the deadline, and will be a Dodger and be in a Dodger uniform on this release. Now, unfortunately, the Chicago White Sox are really bad, and it would be much better to go after a prospect that could possibly play for a team that's going to have a shot at winning a World Series as opposed to a team who is not going to make the playoffs. They have absolutely no chance to make the playoffs. So that is a bit of a downside of prospecting, is making sure you know your market for certain teams. The bat will have to play pretty well here because there isn't much else going on. He'll probably peak defensively at second base, but he could hit for enough power to profile at that position, especially being in the White Sox organization. I guess the other perk of playing in a bad organization as well, though, is prospects seem to fly up the system. I think Nick Kurtz just got promoted to AA or AAA with the Oakland A's. Oakland A's prospects fly through the system because they're just so bad. Jacob Wilson was promoted this year, and he had a knee or an injury on his first base hit. I think it was a hamstring injury. So those prospects in the Oakland A's organization, they tend to skyrocket up the ladder. Emil Morales is number 14 on MLB.com's 2024 international class. He's got the best DSL stats of any player so far. When I was going through my checklist alphabetically, he's got really good numbers in the DSL. He showed off a significant hit power tool while logging 245.1 innings at shortstop, about 90% of or 95% of his defensive reps. And I touched on this earlier. These are the guys that have a legit shot to stick at shortstop. Even though it's the DSL, you can tell they are not concerned about working Morales at other positions at this point in his game. You'll see other prospects on this checklist who maybe play 65 to 70% of the reps at shortstop. They'll play, 20% of the reps at second base, maybe 10% of the reps at third base. But Morales does not come off of shortstop right now. So that's definitely a good sign for his future defensive ceiling. He's got great physical power, projection standing at 6'3", but the major concern is outgrowing shortstop with his size. I've seen reports of high baseball IQ and work ethic, which are things that I look for sure. If I'm going to be spending lots of money on a prospect, I definitely want to do as much digging as possible. A lot of, like I said, you guys, a lot of new collectors, I'm not going to say it's a bad thing because I did it when I started getting into prospecting. I'd go to MLB.com, I'd look at the top 100 prospect list, and I would basically buy guys who were in the top 10, and that would be it. So hopefully this channel can open your eyes to some more avenues for players and not just, go based off of one mainstream website's opinion, and to actually go out and do your own research. That's the best advice I could give anybody that comes to this channel is don't listen to just me. Don't listen to influencers out there who tell you to buy this and buy that. Learn the stats, learn what to look for, learn what stats are important, learn what stats are not important. Go out there and do your own homework. It's fun to go out there, at least for me. I may just be a complete nerd, but it's really fun for me to go try to find players who nobody talks about, who nobody's concerned with, and just be like, hey, like this guy's he's got a pretty good chance. So if you take anything from this video, it's to not just go based off of my opinion or someone else's opinion or MLB.com's opinion. Go out there and look at different people's opinions. Go out there and do your own research and try to find your own players and use your own knowledge and your own gut feelings about who you want to buy, because I can tell you right now, for as many times as I've guessed right on a prospect, I've probably guessed wrong 1.5% more of the time. I have cards sitting in my closet that are worth $5 that I paid much more for. And it's not a guarantee with prospecting. It's a very difficult hobby to make money in. I really don't do it to make money. I just love having cards, and I love diving into these players, and I love seeing, if my analysis pans out. And I don't do a whole lot of buying and selling anymore because I spend so much time on the channel. But just understand that you're not gonna come and just start buying cards and doing quick flips and making thousands of dollars and quit your day job. That's not how it works. I have a full-time job, and I could not afford to quit that job because I buy a couple of baseball cards every once in a while and sell them. So just get that out in the air. I'm sure if you've been listening to this video this long, you probably I've heard it before on my channel, but like I said, go out there, do your own homework. Don't listen to what one person says, and just try to absorb yourself into the hobby as much as you can, and your own information, your own opinions, and your own decisions. Everything looks pretty great so far with Morales. Sorry about that little off-topic rant, but like I said, he's a DSL only stats guy. He's got 13 home runs, 11 stolen bases, a 331 batting average. He's looking really good right now, but be aware, he's DSL only, and that's why I have him in the 2.5 range, because he's DSL only. I'm not, after I think 2022 Bowman Chrome, I don't allow myself to rank any prospect who has not played in the complex league or low A higher than a 2.5, and it's a rule that I'm definitely going to stick to. So keep an eye on this kid. He's probably going to be really expensive on release just because he performed so well. And people are like, oh, yeah, he hit, look at his numbers. This guy's awesome. 338 ISO. But be aware, like I said, DSL only. Eduardo Beltre is next on our list. He's number 39 on MLB.com's class. He had a blowout year in the DSL, posting a 5.05 weighted on-base average. His underlying K data isn't terrible, but it's also not great. You can see he's got a 24% K rate, but he does take some walks, so that is a kind of exciting area. That 24, 25, 26 K percentage is right in my fringe area. He has some thump. He had 10 home runs in his DSL debut. While his stats are exciting, like I said, I would advise heavily against these DSL only guys. He's another one to be careful with because we never really know what's going to happen when these players come stateside. He spent the majority of his defensive reps also in right field, so I'm not thinking he's going to have a very high defensive ceiling, which is going to put a little more pressure on his bat. Next on our list is Lisbel Diaz, and I've got a patron in my Discord server who probably follows Giants prospects closer than anyone that I know in the baseball community. And every time I cover a Giants prospect, I get super nervous about the DMs I'm going to get from this particular collector, but they are usually on point. And he's probably watching this video and knows who he is, and I do appreciate the input that he has, but I always get very nervous with my Giants prospects. So they pushed Diaz pretty hard in 2024, promoting him to low A at age 18. He doesn't have a ton of defensive upside or speed, but he could grow into a bat-first prospect in the upper minors. He's 6'2" and he's got some thump. He hit 9 home runs across 2 levels so far in 2024. His Ks are also pretty exciting for a young power prospect. When you have guys who have sub 20 or very close to 20 K percentages, in the lower minors with a little bit of thump, that's always exciting because it does kind of give the projection that they're going to make more consistent contact in the upper minors. So that's always something to watch. If kids have very high K percentages with their power in the lower minors, that may not translate in the upper minors. You look at a guy like Cam Fisher, who's got all the power in the world, but he's got like a 40+% K rate. So Cam Fisher is not a guy that I would like, but if you're looking at the power production, that's abnormal, but his K percentages are just as abnormal as well. So I'd like to see him take a few more walks, but as I mentioned earlier in the video, that could be an indicator of a contact tool here. He did hit above 300 across 2 different levels so far in his career, but they are very reasonable. The walk rates are pretty reasonable for his age. So he's definitely a guy to watch. He's a 2.5, and he did show off some power at 19.1 in low A this year. He was 18 for some of that season as well. So Randall, I hope you approve of that evaluation. And wrapping up this group is Braylon Morel, and there are some people that I've talked to who really like Braylon Morel. I think he's probably going to end up being one of the bigger chases in this release. He has shown off some power across 2 levels. He's shown a 300+ batting average across 2 levels. 2 consecutive seasons of production with a hit power combo, and that's kind of hard to overlook. So I do think he's not going to be a sleeper. I think one of the guys in the Discord when I posted this stuff for early release, he was like, oh man, Morel's going to be a sleeper and you're talking about him and you're ranking him really high. But I don't think in my opinion was going to be the reason that Morel got pumped in this release. I do think he's got some pretty good numbers, so they're going to be hard to deny by anybody. He improved his K numbers from the DSL to the Complex League, which is promising, but they still aren't great for those 2 levels. He's around 6'2" and has already developed some physical strength. His swing has a lot of effort, but he's definitely got some thump, so definitely something to understand as well. These guys at the lower minors, you know, they have max effort swings, and sometimes that doesn't translate against excellent pitching. But he's also very young, has plenty of time to develop, and could, you know, tone his swing down, still run into some pop, and maybe even make more contact. Defensively, he's getting the majority of his reps in right field and left field, so he's not going to be a high defensive ceiling guy, but I think the bat could possibly play if he continues to hit like he has over these past 2 levels. All right, before we get into our top 5, we're going to take a quick look at some honorable mentions, some players who were 3.5s on this checklist. There were only 24 position players on this checklist that I ranked 3.5 or higher. There are, I think, 98 first chrome and first auto prospects, and we've got 25 that are 3.5 and higher. So that kind of should give you, or sorry, 117. It's right here in the card dummy. 117 prospects, and that's players with first chrome or first chrome auto or both. And we're looking at 24 guys 3.5 or higher. The rest are below 3.5, which is not a good place to be. I had 11 players who are already ranked 7 and on the chopping block. Like I said, I did express my opinion on this release a little more negatively. There was some hobby negativity going into my live stream that I did earlier this week, but I still have to cover it for you guys. It's not a strong release, but right now it's not a strong release. We never know where it could go. It could age very well. It's not what it's looking like right now, but these are the 4 guys that were 3.5 or higher. There are some notable pitchers. Brandon Sproat could be a stud. This guy's got mid to upper 90s fastball. He's got swing and miss stuff. With Paul Skeens kind of bringing pitchers back on the map, I'm not sure how that's going to affect Sproat's pricing, you know, and it was really cool for the hobby to have a guy like Skeens come in and be like, oh my gosh, like this is the most expensive auto that there is right now. Pretty much period on among modern prospects. Like Paul Skeens autos are just ridiculous right now. And there's never been pitchers like that. There's never been situations in a chrome release, of draft release, or, you know, just a regular bone release where a pitcher was like trumping all these position players. So maybe that could help to get some of these really good arms back on the map. Traditionally, pitchers do not hold a lot of value in the hobby. I would love to collect pitchers, but they're so injury prone, it's hard for me to spend, you know, a significant amount of money on a pitcher who tears his UCL, and then we kind of don't know what's going to happen after that. But I mean, that's become so common with Paul Skeens. You know, a lot of people were like, you know, yeah, I'm gonna spend. I mean, he's a future Hall of Famer. Like, he's got I've never seen stuff like he has. I watched him at LSU. I'm an avid LSU baseball fan. I've never seen stuff like Paul Skeens ever in my life. Like, watching baseball, being in professional baseball, I've never seen anybody with his stuff ever. So the big question with Skeens is, though, when is his UCL going to blow out? It's not really a matter of if, because with the way these guys, the velocity these guys throw with, the strength that these guys have, their UCLs just really can't hold up anymore. So it's almost become, you know, kind of a unicorn thing to go injury-free throughout a pitcher's career. So definitely keep in mind, if you're going to go spend a buttload of money on Skeens, is that there's a very significant chance that he does get injured at some point in his career. And I think if he does, that's going to be when Let's Talk Wax jumps on the buying train, because I would love to have some Paul Skeens just for my collection. He would not be a guy that I would try to flip, like I said, but I can't afford a Paul Skeens card right now. My daughter wants a Paul Skeens card. Even his like non-first chrome cards from in this release, they're going to sell. Like he's got a rookie card shield in this release. It's going to sell crazy. But anyway, back on track. Sorry to get off again. Brandon Sproat is the best arm in this release. He's got big league stuff. He could be, you know, I would say his floor is back-end rotation stuff, and he's going to be the best arm on this by a long shot. And I'm really interested to see his price point on release day, you know, with the huge Paul Skeens stuff, you know, kind of getting pitchers back on the map. Now, notable MLB players, we've got Ben Rice, but unfortunately, he does not have an auto based on the checklist. He's a first chrome only, so if you're looking for some Ben Rice, I would definitely try to chase those parallels. I wouldn't go after a whole bunch of base Ben Rice. I try to stay away from base anything. It's just too polluted on eBay. You can find base stuff anywhere, so always try to find numbered stuff. If you can't afford like refractor autos, you can always go for numbered parallels, which are going to be a lot cheaper. And in Ben Rice's situation, that's the only option you have. So like I said, another plug for the Patreon that you can find my complete write-up for all these guys, all 117 prospects, minus the 11 that are on the chopping block. I don't even write those guys up because they're so bad. But you can find all that stuff over on my Patreon page. All right, we're going to jump into our top 5. And as I mentioned, if you skipped through this entire video just to get to the top 5, I do want to remind you that this is just the top 5 players that are in this release based on my opinion. These are not the 5 guys that I'm going to go spend $10,000 on release. These are not guys that are going to be future MLB stars. They are just the 5 players that have the best numbers based on my opinion in this release. They may not even be the highest selling, but they are my favorite 5 players from its release. It's very uncommon to have these guys that have lower Let's Talk Wax. You can see the highest ranking prospect on here is DeVries, and the other guys are all 2s. So there are usually several, a few 1.5s, maybe a 1, maybe 1 or 2 1s, and maybe an elite guy on most releases, but you're not going to find an elite ranking yet out of this release. DeVries is definitely the highest ranking at 1.5, but we're going to jump into Theron Lozano. Now, he has a very small sample size, which is exciting. He'll probably be the 2nd highest chase behind DeVries on this release. That's my thinking. He could, probably, I would definitely say in the top 5. The 2023 season is very difficult to miss. The dude hit 24 home runs while holding manageable numbers in the K department at age 19. So pretty special stuff coming from the 2023 season. His 2023 season is somewhat of an outlier, though, at this point, which makes me a little nervous as his power numbers have kind of tanked after reaching high A. Could be the adjustment phase. Not really sure what's going on there. Maybe he was on some PEDs in 2023. We really don't know. That's the risk we take when we spend money on guys, on young kids, when we spend our hard-earned paychecks on 20-year-old baseball players. So he was also traded to the Tigers prior to the deadline, which didn't seem to affect his performance. He's held fringy K numbers across his career, which could have an impact on his power output in Double-A. His ceiling is going to be determined by how much power he gets to in the upper minors and whether or not he's able to stick behind the plate. He is going to be on the Los Angeles Dodgers on this checklist, and like I said, he was traded to Detroit. And whether or not he can get back to those 2023 power numbers, it's yet to be seen. He's only got 11 home runs and fewer plate appearances in 2024 as compared to the 24 he hit in 2023. Now, during the live stream, there were a couple people that were very excited about Jeremy Rodriguez having a first auto in this release. He was part of the Tommy Pham trade last year. He's got great contact tools with great underlying contact and K numbers. Since joining the Mets, he's held high contact rates, 90% plus over the last 2 levels. So those are very, very high contact rates. We're looking at some pretty good bat-to-ball stuff here. He played in the complex league this past year and held excellent numbers for a 17-year-old, which is young for that level. I think there could be a pretty high hit speed defense ceiling here, and if he continues to improve in the power department, he could really take off. That's the thing with a lot of these hit speed defense prospects is their power ceiling. And that's pretty important in the hobby now. We are seeing a rise in players like Chandler Simpson, players like Jacob Wilson, these players that are hitting for just immaculate batting average. Xavier Edwards was a guy who nobody gave 2 craps about in the hobby since 2020 when he was drafted. And, he's playing well at the big league level, the high contact, the high batting average, no power guys. So, I'm not sure if he's going to be a no-power guy. The fact that he's already hit 3 home runs at age 18 is, I think, more than Xavier Edwards hit in several years across the minor leagues. Definitely, I think, more than Chandler Simpson's hit. So I think, like I said, the power and the ability to stick at shortstop is going to determine the ceiling here for Jeremy Rodriguez. At number 3, we've got Eduardo Taiit, and he could probably be one of my... He's definitely one of my favorite players. I thought about putting him at number 2. I'd put him at number 3 just because he's a catcher. And sometimes, you know, as catchers move up in the minor leagues, it's hard for them to really put a lot of focus on offense when they're trying to, you know, look at film from hitters, look at data from hitters. They're trying to find ways to get hitters out. They're catching bullpens. It's pretty taxing physically for a catcher. But I definitely like Taiit. He put together 2 dominant seasons in the DSL and Complex League before receiving a promotion to Low A to finish the 2024 season at age 17. They're still not done yet. That is an error in my write-up, but he was promoted to Low A to finish out his season, not finishing his season in Low A. His line shows the ability to hit for both average and power, and he's a lefty swinger as a catcher. And, you know, guys like that are also kind of unicorns in the hobby, guys that can catch and swing from the left side. So there's a definite advantage for him in that aspect. He doesn't walk much, and it could be a sign of an immature approach at 17. And that could impact him as he moves up in the system. He's fringy on defense, but like I said, it's rare to find left-handed hitters with juice that stick behind the plate. He could have a good enough hit tool to profile at first base or maybe DH, you know, if he can't stick behind the plate. He's got kind of a squatty body. I did get to watch some video of Taiit swing. And if you look at the body, there's not a lot of physical projection there. I don't think he is going to have a very high defensive upside outside of catcher. So we'll definitely see what happens with Taiit. He's a guy that I really like on this release, and I'm not sure what the Phillies are going to be price-wise. I'm not sure. I don't believe there's anybody else besides Taiit on the Phillies that are going to drive their prices up. So maybe if he is a sleeper in this release, we can get the Phillies for some pretty cheap prices, and he could be a guy to maybe take a look at in your breaks. At number 2, we've got a Cedric Vargas, and is one of the more promising young players on this checklist. He's just not quite as good as Leonidas DeVries right now as far as the numbers go. And the pop. He's improved his K numbers from the Complex League to Low A, which is a good sign for his development. I always like to see improvement from level to level. He's got significant power for his age, posting a 200-ish ISO across every level of his career. Super exciting stuff there. On top of his power, he's shown the ability to hit for average and steal bases in the lower minors. He logged 545 innings at shortstop in Low A this season. And his ceiling could be even higher if he's able to stick there. So we could be looking at a hit, power, speed, defense guy if everything pans out. And those are usually the highest selling prospects in the hobby, the prospecting hobby, in the world of Bowman Chrome. The guys that can hit for average, the guys that have power, the guys that can steal bases, and the guys that play center field and shortstop. They seem to be kind of the unicorns in the hobby. So right now, just based on 3 seasons, hasn't had any time in high A, hasn't had any time in double A, and those are game changers. But right now, looking at a guy in the lower minors who's very promising. And like I said, you know, I usually don't like to jump on prospects until at least see some maybe high A data. I did buy a bunch of Welbin Francisca earlier in the year, and I was sitting there telling myself, I said, don't do it, Kyle. Don't do it, Kyle. You don't buy prospects based on complex league stats. But I just took a whim on Welbin Francisca, and he got promoted to Low A out of the complex league and is doing pretty well. So hopefully that wasn't a huge mistake for me. But like I said, with the Cedric Vargas, all we have is lower minors data, but the data is very good stat line wise right now. We are to number 1, and something fun I would like to do since we have release, it's a couple weeks away, is in the comments if you guys want to throw what you think Leonidas DeVries base chrome autos will sell for 2024 on release day. This is always fun. It's something we do in the Discord. Let me know what you guys think will be the opening day price for DeVries. I said it would be somewhere around $300. And my man Bobby, who moderates my Discord server, an awesome guy as far as prospecting goes. He does some of the deepest dives on players. He is an avid prospector. He's just like me, but he doesn't like doing stuff on YouTube. So he does a really good job in our Discord server, writes a lot of articles for us, and I love hearing Bobby's opinion on stuff. And he said that he thinks that the DeVries autos will debut right around $400. So I definitely think those are not going to, those prices are, they're fantasy prices. If you pull a Leo DeVries card in your break on opening day, I don't even know if I would take the time to submit it to PSA. If I did, I would express that thing. I would get it in hand as quickly as possible, and I would get it sold as quickly as possible. If you need to go back to the slide that I did from the breakdown of 2023, Ethan Salas cards started at $500, and they are down to $100 1 year later. He's definitely a guy that I think you could buy back into later in the year. If you're going to spend $500 on a base chrome auto, think about the players you could buy right now that have a $500 base chrome auto. There were Bobby Witt Jr. base chrome autos, first chrome autos, selling a month ago for $500. Bobby Witt Jr. He's unreal right now. Speed, power, defense. The dude is unreal. You could buy Jackson Trio cards. You could buy a PSA 10 Jackson Trio for $550. I saw one for sale today on Facebook, and I almost pulled the trigger on it. So definitely be aware of spending $500, $400, even $300 on a Leo DeVries card on release, because he's going to be the big chase. There's no doubt. He's the cover boy. He's the cover of my video. He is going to be expensive. So my advice to anyone who gets him in a break and pulls a big card, if you want to get it graded, if you think it's in great shape, it's like an orange or it's a blue, it's a very low numbered card, I would express that thing and I would get it on eBay as soon as possible. If you pull a base auto, that's a no-brainer. I would get rid of it as soon as possible. And, you know, if he's a guy that you really like, you could definitely buy back in a year later. And I would be very surprised if his prices 1 year from today are close to the prices that he will have in the first week of release. So having said that again for the second time, he's the #1 international prospect in this class on MLB.com, and he actually skipped the DSL and Complex League after signing with the Padres at 17. So he went straight from the international pool to low A, and that's something that you do not see very often. He is very high ceiling bat. He's got 11 home runs and 21 doubles so far in 2024, and he's 17.9. So like I've said before, you know, there's thump. He's got 21 extra base hits, 11 home runs, and he's 17 years old with a 23.7% K rate. So he makes a lot of contact, and there's definitely some thump there. He's a very high ceiling bat, like I said, with excellent K data for his age level. He's played the entire year at shortstop, and he actually has the tools, I think, from what I've read, to stay there long term. I usually don't read into a lot of, you know, he's got great arm strength or great range. I look at the data, and if the data says that this guy plays 95% of his reps at shortstop, the minor league organizations are smart enough to know that he's got a pretty good chance to stick at shortstop, or they wouldn't have him playing his 95% reps at that position. You can see a lot bigger picture from just basic data you can get at any website. You can go to Fangraphs and get defensive data. You can go to Baseball Reference and get defensive data. I mean, you can see where these guys play the majority of their reps. And if they're splitting between 3 different positions in the lower minors, that's not a good sign. If they're playing every single rep at shortstop, that means the Padres probably want to see how far they can push him at shortstop until he maybe outgrows the position or can't play there anymore. But he's definitely a safer bet to stick at shortstop if he's going to play there 95% of his reps in the lower minors than somebody who's splitting time between 3 different positions. So he's got power on both sides of the plate, switch hitting shortstop, his ceiling. is his ceiling, and he settles. You know, if he's a place, if he, I definitely wait, like I said, for prices to settle. The complete player profile here, it looks really good, but just if it's a $500, $400 auto on release, man, look at the date, look at the card that I showed you guys at the beginning of the video. He's definitely got a higher floor than I think a lot of these highly touted prospects from previous releases. You see his batting average is 238, but his weighted on-base average is 380. When this guy makes contact, he makes contact. He's got, like I said, 11 home runs, 21 doubles, 13 stolen bases. So I stopped reading into a ton of batting average. And like I said, Bobby was another guy that got me kind of on the weighted on-base average train, because not all hits are created equal. A guy that has 10 singles isn't quite as valuable as a guy who has 7 doubles to me. And that's kind of what weighted on-base average does. It takes any offensive outcome and applies a weight to it. So batting average, if you hit a home run, it would be a hit. Weighted on base average, there's a weight applied to that home run, so you get more, I guess you would say, points for hitting a home run, as opposed to batting average, which is going to say a home run's just a hit. A double for batting average is just a hit. A triple for batting average is just a hit. But for weighted on base average, you get different multipliers for those bigger offensive events. So I definitely always try to keep an eye on weighted on base average, and his sits at 380 as a 17.9-year low A. Still some risk because he's so young. You know, Ethan Salas destroyed low A. The Padres pushed him to the absolute limit. They threw him up in Double A last year. I mean, that was crazy. But like I said, when he was age appropriate, he hit very well. So I'm not sure what the Padres are going to do with DeVries. I'm not sure if they're going to try to throw him in Double A next year, you know, as an 18-year-old. That could definitely have an impact on his prices if he struggles. So it's really hard to tell. There's so many different moving parts to prospecting. Nothing is solid. And he's definitely my favorite guy on this release by a pretty long shot. But like I said, he's definitely not a lock as well, because we only have lower minors data. As I mentioned before, if you guys want to help support the channel, be sure to check out my Patreon page. Lots of exclusive content over there to help you guys stay organized in your prospecting journey. If you want to check that out, I'll put a link in the video description. I want to give a huge shout out to all my Patreon Level 3 sponsors. You guys rock. If you enjoy this content, don't forget to subscribe. And as I said before, I'm going to be posting my team break guide in the next week, so subscribe so you guys don't miss that content as well. Y'all have a great day.